Ever noticed a colleague, someone who used to really go the extra mile, suddenly just, well, doing the bare minimum?
Or maybe on the flip side, seeing a manager kind of subtly sideline someone
Mm-hmm.
until they just leave.
Exactly. These aren't just random things happening. Today we're getting into two really significant, often unspoken workplace trends: silent resign and silent fire.
hmm They're pretty big concepts right now.
They really are. And they're changing how people and companies interact, often without, a direct word being said.
It's all under the surface sometimes.
So our mission today is simple. Cut through the noise. We want to unpack what these terms actually mean, the subtle signs you might see, and what's really driving them.
Giving you a shortcut to understanding these big shifts.
Consider this your central guide. Okay, so let's start with silent resign. It gets called quiet quitting a lot, too.
Right.
It seems like more than just an employee being, disengaged. What's the real difference here?
Yeah, that's a good question. What's really interesting about silent resign is that it isn't actually about quitting the job physically.
Okay.
It's more of a mental, maybe emotional step back. The employee consciously decides, okay, I'm only doing the absolute minimum required by my job description, nothing more.
So a deliberate boundary setting.
Exactly. It's often a reaction against that sort of hustle culture we hear so much about. It can happen when there's a breakdown in what we sometimes call the psychological contract.
Oh, the unspoken agreement.
Right. That implicit deal between the employee and employer about expectations and what each side contributes. When that feels broken, people might silently resign.
That's a really key point, the deliberate choice aspect. So beyond just doing the minimum, what are some other, maybe less obvious signs that someone might be doing this?
Well, you might see them becoming less proactive in how they communicate.
Like how?
Maybe asking fewer questions in meetings, not offering up suggestions like they used to.
Hmm.
They might also seem less invested in the team itself.
Pulling back socially.
Yeah, maybe skipping the optional team lunches or not jumping into collaborative brainstorming. It's like they shift from being an active contributor to just an executor of tasks.
A retreat, like you said, not a full withdrawal.
Precisely. It's a subtle shift.
And what's driving this? Is it just individual burnout, or are there bigger, maybe organizational things pushing people this way?
Well, individual burnout and feeling unappreciated are definitely big factors. We see that a lot.
Sure.
But the research also points pretty strongly towards systemic issues. Things like, ineffective management, feeling like there are no real growth opportunities, or even a toxic culture where going the extra mile isn't rewarded, or worse, it backfires.
That's critical.
And especially after the pandemic, there was this huge shift, right? People started massively reprioritizing work-life balance, their own well-being.
Definitely saw that.
So many just started drawing clearer lines. For managers, spotting this isn't about blame. It's about seeing if you need to proactively re-engage, maybe address some of those root causes.
That reprioritization point is huge. Okay, let's flip the script now. Let's talk about the employer side. Silent fire.
Right, or quiet firing.
This one sounds, I don't know, a bit more insidious, maybe passive-aggressive.
It can certainly feel that way, yeah. Silent fire is basically when an employer, often subtly and maybe even systematically, makes things difficult for an employee.
To push them out.
Essentially, yes.
Yeah.
Without actually terminating them formally. The goal is often to make their work life so unrewarding, maybe so frustrating, that the employee chooses to resign themselves.
Wow. Okay, that's quite a maneuver. What kind of subtle tactics do companies or managers use for this? Things that wouldn't leave an obvious paper trail.
The tactics are often quite covert. It could be things like consistently passing someone over for promotions or raises, even if they seem qualified.
Okay.
Or maybe gradually reducing their responsibilities, taking them off interesting projects, deliberately excluding them from important meetings or decision-making loops.
Feeling iced out.
Exactly. Sometimes it's just a real lack of constructive feedback or zero opportunities for development. Or maybe just assigning all the undesirable tasks. It all adds up to making the employee feel undervalued, unwanted.
That sounds like a really difficult, challenging spot for the employee. Why would a company do this instead of just, having the tough conversation and terminating someone directly?
Good question. It often boils down to avoiding risk and cost.
Ah, the practicalities.
Right. Direct termination can mean severance pay, maybe dealing with unemployment claims, or even facing legal action if the reasons for dismissal aren't crystal clear or well documented.
So it's liability avoidance.
That's a big part of it. It can also just reflect a company culture that, frankly, avoids direct confrontation Or maybe managers just haven't been trained properly on how to handle underperformance or necessary restructuring effectively.
So it's the path of least resistance, in
Yeah,
a way.
an indirect path, yeah, to get
Uh,
the outcome they want without the direct conflict or cost.
okay, so wrapping this up, thinking about both silent resign and silent fire, it really shows a fascinating kind of evolving shift in workplace dynamics, doesn't it?
It really does.
How individuals and employers are navigating things now. It feels like the biggest changes aren't always the ones announced with fanfare.
Absolutely. They often happen through these unspoken actions, these subtle pressures and withdrawals.
Yeah.
And this really raises a crucial question for everyone listening, I think. How might recognizing these subtle, often unaddressed dynamics
Hmm.
actually impact your own career choices? And what about the future of work relationships generally?
That's a great point.
What does all this mean for building, real trust and clear, honest communication in any professional setting? It's something we're thinking about.
Definitely something to mull over. We encourage you to keep exploring these ideas, whether you're an employee navigating your path or a leader shaping a workplace. Thanks for joining us.